everybody! It is I, Hannah Ruhamah, the Kombucha Mama. And there's a song I want to play for you. I don't have my drum today. It's by Fia. Maybe you've heard of her. I had never heard of her, and she's amazing. She is just singing to my heart. Hello! Today is an Ask Mama Anything. So, any questions you might have about kombucha, jun, milk kefir, water kefir, going commercial, what's up with the, just anything that you want to know about what's going on. You want to know about Kombucha Kamp, you want to know about the K-Camp open house, whatever you want to know about, today is your day to get all those details. Today we got the details. Tell me what you need to know. I am here to help you grow. Share with me your detailed questions. What do you want to know? Kombucha Mama's here to help you grow your knowledge, your mind, your business, your time. What do you need to know? Let it flow, let it flow. Hablo español también si necesitas ayuda. En español yo puedo ayudarte. Pídame que necesitas saber. Y por lo menos déjame saber qué sabor está tomando en estos momentos. Están listos para las navidades, los holidays. What flavor are you sipping on? Tell me what you got going on. I want to know what's up in your world of fermentation. Fermentation. Come on, hello everybody, you're here. Let's get started. You don't always have time with the mama. In fact, consultations, which we do offer commercial consultations. So if you are exploring the idea of going commercial, if you already are a commercial business and you want to expand, if you need bulk, SCOBY, starter liquid, kefir grains, we can help you here at Kombucha Kamp. And so I'm so excited to connect with all of you today, and I'm here waiting for your questions. Probably what I'll do is I'll just go to some of our frequently asked questions and start chatting there. But of course, I really want to tailor this to what you need to know. So if you're new, how about this? If you're new to brewing kombucha, drop a fire. If you're an experienced kombucha brewer, drop a heart. And let's see where everybody's at and how can I help you with your process. It's starting to get cold here in the Northern Hemisphere, so we have to keep our SCOBYs warm, keep our ferments at their ideal temperature. Woo! Thanks for the fire. Love to see the newbies and the old kombucha heads here. But tell me, what's going on with you? How are your brews behaving? Are they weathering this storm? Do you have your heaters in place, or what kind of setup do you use? Do you put them in a closet? Do you have them in a box? Because it is getting cold here. Of course, in the summer, in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the exact opposite. Things are starting to heat up. Sometimes we can see some of our cultures get a little too active in those really warm summer months, and at the equator, of course, it's always warm. So there's a couple of different things we can do to chill that out. But let's talk. Tell me what is on your mind. Tell me what you need to know about kombucha, jun and kefir, tea, because I've got it all for you. I've got it all for you. Now I will sit in silence. Nobody has questions for me, so let me make some up. Let me find some questions to ask myself. Here's a question. Sourdough starter. can it be placed in the fridge for 6 months? It does not need to be fed during that time. I mean, we can always put a culture into dormancy. So sure, you can stick your sourdough in the fridge. Just know it's probably going to grow really thick crust that you'll want to pry off once you get it out. And it's probably going to take a little while for it to get active again. So we certainly can put things in deep storage. With our SCOBYs, that would be just sticking them in a hotel and leaving them there. Now the thing is, if we neglect them for too long of a time, they're not going to be immediately ready to start, right? You're like putting it into hibernation where it's going to get dormant, it's going to sleep a little. And so if you want to, you can do that. But just know that when you come to revive it, it isn't like take it out of the fridge and instantly start. That's going to cause a problem because your expectation will not be meeting the reality of how the cultures are behaving. And so we certainly can put anything we want into dormancy. Just know that when we come to revive it, to have patience, to refresh it frequently, to be giving it nutrients and warmth and all of its ideal conditions again, and then it will come back to life. However, also be prepared for maybe it won't come back to life, in which case you would just grab a new starter. But yes, you can certainly put a sourdough starter in the fridge and let it sit for 6 months and come back to it later. All right, here's a question from Paula. I'm in the process of setting up a continuous brew and I'm waiting for my order for a spigot from you, which will be another week or so. Is it okay to keep the SCOBY I received from you last week in the plastic bag it arrived in, or do I need to take it out and put it into a hotel? Great question. So there's two different ways in which we deal with our cultures. So the kombucha and the jun are very stable in their packaging. They have a shelf life of 120 days. They could last even longer than that. We certainly have had people say, oh, I bought this last year and never did it. Can I still use it? And the short answer is sure, give it a try. You never know. The only way you're going to know is if you work with it and see what happens. Of course, you'll know it's failed if it produces mold. However, it could, again, like I just talked about, if it's dormant, it may need some time to get vibrant again. That said, leaving those cultures in those bags, preferably not in the fridge, leave them at room temp so that they're ready to go and they don't try to fall asleep or go dormant in the fridge. You could certainly put them in a hotel, though that's not necessary. You can leave them in the pouches. They're going to be viable for an extended period of time. Now, the obverse is true for kefir grains, which is to say kefir grains are more delicate and they need to be fed more frequently. So we tend to make them in smaller batches so that they can get the consistent nutrients that they need. What that means is if you are going to wait, hello everybody, if you are going to wait before you work with the milk kefir or water kefir grains, then you're going to want to store those packets in the fridge because in this case we do want them to go a little dormant so that they don't eat all the nutrients that they've been shipped in or start eating themselves, which is what happens when they run out of nutrients. They start to dissolve and consume their own polysaccharides. So yes, with a kombucha or jun, feel free to leave it in the packet for as long as you need to and come back to it when you're ready. With the kefir grains, we want to stick those in the fridge, and if possible, we want to get them into our nutrient solution as quickly as possible because that is going to allow them to remain active and vibrant. So that was Paula's question. Let's see, Candace Morell advice. Really like your products and have a constant supply of kombucha going at all times. My husband and I try not to drink too many calories. We save that for wine. Good move. Everything in moderation, including moderation. And don't forget, ask me your questions. I'm here just going through my Kombucha Kamp customer service box. Hi, Fanny. And answering questions until y'all have some for me. So my husband and I try not to drink too many calories. We save that for the wine. Anyway, we've been trying to incorporate more turmeric and ginger in our diets. Awesome. These are, ancient herbs, spices. I guess in this case, they're specifically rhizomes that have a long history of use in both traditional Chinese medicine as well as Ayurveda that have a natural anti-inflammatory properties. And one of the things that we're really suffering with, especially in the West, is toxic chemical exposure, overexposure to toxic chemicals, whether that's the food supply, the water, the air, the raining down particles on us, et cetera, et cetera. we need to find ways in order to allow our bodies to naturally detox, which kombucha is really fantastic for. It literally cleans your liver. So think about your filter. If your filter gets all clogged up, guess what it can't do? There's too much crud. It can't actually actively filter. And now those toxins end up sequestered into your fat cells. And so this is why it's not like, one bad meal or one instance of toxic exposure that creates a problem. It's the accumulative effect over time that then becomes trapped in the body. And this is why kombucha is so wonderful as a daily tonic, because we're just gradually chelating, gradually removing. Cheryl, I would love to come to Desert Hot Springs and teach a class. So let's get that set up. DM me. So we're storing these toxins in our body, and with that, we want to gradually release it by drinking the kombucha on a daily basis. So it's got hepatoprotective properties, which means it protects your liver. It's got renal protective properties. Another one of our filters, really important to keep clean, are the kidneys. So ginger and turmeric are really great to add to your kombucha. In fact, any herbs, ashwagandha, you can get super trendy cacao, and put those into your beverages. And what they're going to do is it's going to pass on those properties to you. So we have lots of great recipes on the Kombucha Kamp website for both ginger and turmeric. So go to kombuchakamp.com, go to the search bar, type in ginger, type in turmeric, and you're going to see those recipes pop up. Hi, Lupa, all the way from Georgia. Nice to see you here. So yes, ginger, turmeric, excellent to add, especially in the winter. They're also going to have some warming properties because they're going to help with circulation. And so if you're prone to cold hands and feet, I certainly was until I started drinking kombucha on a regular basis. And what I found is the purines in the tea, especially in the black tea, has warming properties, and that's going to help with your circulation. And of course, circulation is how we nutrify our entire body. It's stagnancy that causes issues, right? We are constantly dying. Yes, every day cells are dying. Yay! Because it means new cells are growing. So we're constantly dying and being reborn every single day. Isn't that exciting? And so when we give our bodies the nutrients that they need, then we have the tools, the fuel, the food, the inputs that our body requires to continuously regenerate. We are amazing regenerative beings, like starfish. Don't cut off my arm, though. So we don't necessarily see that type of regeneration because it's all happening internally. It's happening inside our body. Where we see it is on our skin, on the external expressions of our physical health. And so your kidney health is reflected in your skin. So if you're finding you have a lot of, it could be a rash, it could be acne, these are all just signs that you want to get into your gut. You want to start to clear some of this stuff out, and kombucha is a really great place to start. Now, some folks find kombucha to be a little too tangy. It is a little sour punch in the mouth. Of course, making it at home, you have full control over the flavor and the process. And so that means you can harvest it when there's still more of a teaspoon of sugar to help the medicine go down. And again, remember, the sugar remaining in kombucha is already pre-digested. That means the microbes, the yeast in specific, excretes an enzyme called invertase that cuts that disaccharide in half into those monosaccharide components. And so kombucha, the sugar in kombucha, ends up having a lower glycemic impact on the body. And in fact, when we allow it to ferment even longer so that it has a higher quantity of those naturally occurring organic acids, that's when it really helps folks who have diabetes and different metabolic disease, because it helps your body process sugars and keep the appropriate ratio in your body so that you're not favoring one side or the other. So highly recommend turmeric, ginger, those are all great. Plus, of course, if you want to try it, you can grab a brand from the store. There's lots of brands that are incorporating these. I think there's a Tantra turmeric from GT's, and like Health Aid has ginger lemon, and like every kombucha brand is gonna have a ginger flavor because ginger and human beings, we just have this really lovely relationship. We're so happy. So that is a question from Candace. Let's see, what's up with Paul? All right, here we go. Let's see if we can help Paul with his issue. And of course, if you have questions, drop them here. I'm happy to answer them live. I'm just going through my customer service inbox right now and answering questions as we go. Hey, Cali Kombucha, bienvenidos. Y no olvides que hablo español. So, si necesitas consejos en español, pídame y yo puedo ayudarte. So, inglés, español, 中文，可是我害怕我的生字 可能不够好，为了解释很清楚的回答，所以看看，如果你要我用中文也可以呀。Yes, so I am a polyglot. That was English, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese. I'm happy to answer questions in any of those, although I was just making the caveat with my Chinese. My vocabulary might be a little beep, not as good as my Spanish. How about that? Hola, saludos! Okay, so Paul's question is, I've been making kombucha pretty much consistently for over 10 years. I took a couple months off recently and left my batch on top of the fridge, and it got pretty ripe. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yes, I do. Stinky booch. I love me a stinky booch. Sour. So here's what I do with my sour kombucha. I dilute it with water. You know why? Because now, instead of having to buy some of this fancy, expensive seltzer water with fake flavorings in there, or maybe they threw a probiotic pill in to make you think you're getting something healthy, the reality is the naturally occurring organic acids in kombucha are way better and stronger. They can be intense. And so diluting your kombucha with a little bit of water, this is a great trick. So if your kombucha is a little too tangy and you're feeling like, oh my God, I just want to dump this out, first of all, don't dump it in a plant unless it's a weed, because you'll probably kill it. I accidentally did that to my lemon tree. I poured all this cinnamon kombucha in there, not realizing I was going to murder my lemon tree. I was very sad. Live and learn, eh? So yeah, that's what I do, is I just dilute it with a little bit of water. It's like lemon in your water, except now it's got all those great kombucha acids in it. So I took some off and started a new batch. That was at least 8 weeks ago. It's produced some really gorgeous SCOBYs, but it's still just sweet tea. Any idea what happened? This has me stumped. I tried putting, hello Arizona Kombucha Co. Welcome. I tried putting some more starter from an old batch, plus tried what's been in the fridge for a long while, quite overdone as well. Still nothing. All right, so we're getting beautiful SCOBYs, but the tea isn't moving in the fermentation process as desired. So we replied, more details, temperature. If it's left unattended, there's always a chance a new brew won't work. And even if it does, it may be weakened. This is what I was just talking about. When we let things go dormant or sit too long, while they still can have active components, because they haven't had a consistent supply of nutrients, they've had to go into a kind of stasis. And in fact, with kombucha, what's really interesting is, you know, the yeast will create sugars, the bacteria eat that and excrete the alcohol, the yeast, or the yeast creates the alcohol, the bacteria consumes the alcohol, but then if they run out of either alcohol or sugars, they start to eat parts of themselves. So they get a little cannibalistic, if you will. That's why we don't want to leave them too long. So when left unattended, it could be weakened. If the pH drops over the course of a week, you can tell by using our pH strips or our meter, or by taste. It means there's a potential for it to bounce back. If it doesn't become any more sour, if you encounter mold, you'll want to toss everything and start over. So then Paul says, thanks for the reply. This one has me stumped. I just used some starter from the previous batch, adding the new sweetened tea with a SCOBY, and it sits on top of my fridge like it's done for over 10 years. I check in 2 to 3 weeks. Not got sour at all, no mold. So here's what I'm thinking. It sounds like it's a yeast issue, because the bacteria obviously are still doing their thing, and they're getting nutrients somewhere from the sugar, from the nitrogen in the tea, things like this. However, the yeast aren't doing their thing. And he's in Savannah, Georgia, but you know, temperatures fluctuate, and even if you've done something the same way for many years, any little change can cause the ecosystem to shift, right? As we see in our own ecosystem, it's continuing to shift, just like it always has. Woo, 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 woo. Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. All right, so it's unusual. I figured I might ask some help, getting some help. Yeah, so I would say you probably want to put some sort of heat source on it. The yeast might be dormant. They're not moving as quickly as they should. And while maybe this worked, you know, every day for 10 years when everything was healthy and vibrant, now that we're in a cooler time of the year and it's been dormant, it probably needs the right temperature. So for kombucha, that temperature range is going to be 75 to 85. And if I were really good, I'd know my Celsius, but I don't. Okay, I'm going to go look it up. Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, so we've got 75 is 23, just about 24 degrees Celsius to 29 or 30. So in Celsius, it's 24 to 30. In Fahrenheit, it is 75 to 85. That is ideal for kombucha. So we go about 10 degrees cooler for Jun. And the reason for that is Jun has all of the sugars, including the glucose and fructose, present along with the sucrose. And so it can kickstart that fermentation process. It just goes much faster. So that's going to be 21 to 26 or 27 Celsius. So those are your ranges for the kombucha and the Jun. Now the milk kefir actually likes a slightly cooler temperature, so this is like a perfect time of year to be making milk kefir. She's gonna be so happy on your countertop, thick and luscious and yummy, and those grains are gonna be super happy. Water kefir, like sort of also known as tibikos, is sort of in between the milk kefir and the kombucha. So it wants a warmer temperature. It doesn't like too cold of a temp, but if it's too hot, it tends to get funky too. So you really want to be in sort of moderate temperature ranges with the tibikos, whereas the milk kefir does like this more like 68 to 75, 78 at the max. So those are your temperatures. All right. So hopefully Paul will get a little heat on his brew and reactivate those yeast. All right, Steve. Oh, he just needs replacement straps. Yes, so if you have one of our heaters, the Essential Heat Strip, the year-round heating system with dimmer, or the Ferment Friend, which has that thermostat unit so you can set it and forget it, we have included a Velcro strap that allows it to stay nice and snug to the vessel. So if you have our heater or any other type of heater, but you need a strap, we do have the strap separately, so you can find those at kombuchakamp.com. Okay, water kefir, continuous brew. Okay, can we do a water kefir continuous brew? Sort of. The reason I say sort of is because it ferments really quickly. And so typically with a continuous brew, we're creating a larger batch so that we can have a little bit every single day, and we're going to keep topping it off, right? That's what we do with the kombucha continuous brew. The nice thing about that is there's acids created later in the fermentation process. Remember all those great organic acids I've been talking about to detoxify your liver, to keep your kidneys safe and protected, to help with the filter, to keep everything moving. So it helps with the filters, and then it helps with the engine. So, right, the guts are the engine. It's going to help with digestion and breaking things down. What happens with water kefir, because it ferments so quickly and it's a sugar-only ferment, it tends to over-ferment too quickly, and then you may or may not like the flavor, or you might have too much of it, or the grains will start to eat themselves. And so, again, the thing with water kefir, because people get really like, how come the grains aren't reproducing? It's like, well, you need to feed it every single day if you want the grains to reproduce. If you want to do maintenance, right, because usually every 24 hours, the water kefir is still pretty sweet. And so you want to give it a little more time, either to flavor in the bottle or infuse with flavors before you drink it, so that more of that sugar is converted. However, if you want your grains to reproduce, you need to feed them nutrients on a regular basis. And so with the water kefir, you have to kind of weigh, am I trying to get more grains out of them, or do I just want to maintain the amount I have so that I'm consistently getting the water kefir I want? So it's not impossible. You can do a continuous brew. I just feel that most people end up quitting it because it's too much. That said, we certainly can send you a recipe, and we have these really great jars from, what are they calling it now? The Little Fermenter. So they had a French name, but there's not a lot of French spoken here in the US as much. Je parle français, mais il n'y a pas beaucoup de personnes qui le parlent ici aux États-Unis. Chufei, see there, and now I want to switch to another language I know, which in this case is Mandarin. Chufei, 他们是加拿大或者非洲来的，要不然 il n'y a pas beaucoup de personnes qui parlent français. All right. Oh, does my tea syrup have mold? Dry and powdery. Yes, so anytime you're finding dry powder on top of anything, that is probably mold. Yeah, so mold loves sugar. Mold loves sugar. That's how mold ends up in our bodies. It's how mold ends up growing in lots of places. It loves moisture, it loves sugar, and so we need to be really conscientious when we're storing syrups that we keep them refrigerated and in dry, dehumectified, right? Like, so places where the water has been taken out Those are the kinds of places we want to store those products. So here's how you can tell. So with the kombucha, you do what we call the like touch test. If you're not sure if what you're seeing is new growth, is it mold, touch the surface. And if there's a powder that remains behind on your finger, then it's probably mold. And in which case we want to toss everything. We want to start over with a fresh culture. This is why we have a SCOBY hotel, is because in case we need extras, they're on hand. So that's what we do with those. But we just want to be careful not to brew moldy products because there's so many people with compromised immune systems. I mean, in a way, right, so you think about homeopathy, which is this methodology of taking known poisonous plants and diluting their strength down to a very trace amount. And what happens is when you then consume this trace amount of this potentially harmful substance, the body creates a healing reaction. In fact, this is what sort of the original concept behind a vaccine is where you take some of the infecting agent and you cause your body to respond to that infecting agent, and through that response mechanism, your body creates antibodies that then protect it. So should you come across a much larger dose of whatever it is you're vaccinating against, then your body already has the framework, it has the knowledge, it has built into your immune system the ability to deal with that. That's what a vaccine is supposed to do. Vaca, cow, because Louis Pasteur killed a whole bunch of cows trying to create vaccines against anthrax and things like that. So that is technically how that's supposed to work. And so homeopathy is sort of this similar concept. And it's also, I think, important to mention because, there's so much orthorexia, which is a desire to strictly follow rules. And so whether your diet is omnivore, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, keto, right? Like there's so many different labels for how we can talk about how we eat. And there's so many rules. And what happens is we lose the pleasure of eating. We lose the enjoyment of eating. We lose the ability to understand what it is our bodies need. And even if we're eating a diet that makes us feel terrible, we'll continue eating it because of orthorexia, because we need this identity. We need to follow these rules. And the reality is even, we need a little bit of poison to keep the system primed, right? And what I mean by that is just like the body needs to consistently have inputs that allow it to respond so that way it can continuously update. This is some tied into the hygiene theory, right? So if you're too sanitized, if children are never allowed to put dirt in their mouth or they're over sanitized, their immune system just doesn't have an opportunity to grow because it's never being exposed to something. And so even in our diets, right, we want to I only eat this clean food or this, that, or whatever it is that we're consuming, and yet we need a little bit of the processed foods or whatever it is on occasion, right? Like I can't get all seed oils out of my diet as much as I would like to, because then it means I can only make food for myself, which I do most of the time. However, I'm also going to sometimes get an In-N-Out burger and or I'm going to have a bowl of cereal, right? That's also a processed food. So, it's not about being perfect. It's about choosing the things that make you feel better in the moment. And feeling better is not just about what nutrients help my body be strong. It can also be emotional sometimes, right? Like we have comfort foods, things that remind us of different places. And even just saying a little blessing over the food, having intentionality with how we eat can really transform how our body responds to those nutrients. You can be eating the best food, but if you're constantly watching TV and zoned out, your body may not be able to absorb those nutrients because you're not engaging your entire being in the process of digesting, right? So digestion isn't just things fall into the cement mixer and the cement mixer breaks it down. We're not machines. Remember, we're human beings. We're living. We're dynamic. We have animals, spiritual. We're all kinds of. We're pretty cool. And so that means that there isn't this sort of mechanized way of consumption. is only going to leave you feeling depleted, even if you're consuming the best things in the world, on the planet, etc. So listening to our bodies, ebbing and flowing, being gentle with ourselves, allowing ourselves, hey, look, if you're craving broth, if you're craving, animal protein or nutrients, let yourself have it. We don't have to eliminate the consumption of everything in order to quote unquote save the planet. What we need to do is look at nature. Biomimicry, this is one of my favorite things. We look at nature, we see how nature handles things, and we follow her patterns. I don't know if you guys have seen the Biggest Little Farm, I think that's what it's called, or the Littlest Big Farm, about Apricot Lane, because I'm from Chicago. Apricot Lane Farms, and their farm is beautiful. They've done it in this very biodynamic way, and of course they had to learn how to deal with their ecosystem and how to manage it correctly. But that's it. Your body is an ecosystem. This planet is an ecosystem. Our planet is part of an even larger ecosystem. And so like the Matryoshka dolls, we're just this sort of nesting. And so when we look out into nature, we see ourselves reflected, right? Our lungs look like the trees. And what do trees do? They put out CO2. And what do our lungs do? They bring in oxygen, right? So they almost serve this sort of, yin and yang effect. We look at the oceans, cover 70% of the world. Well, that salty water, that plasma, that blood, that liquid is in your veins, and that's like 70% of your body. So we truly mirror our environment in all ways. And that's why when we get super conscious about what we're putting and how we're putting and intentionality of what we're doing, we really have a transformative digestive experience. So I am by no means perfect at all of this. It's just food for thought. So that way we can approach our day with a little more intentionality. Any questions from the audience? Please reach out and let me know. Otherwise, I will go and find a couple more in our archives here. So that was all the emails today. So I've answered every email here online, and now I'll go and find some that have already been answered so that we can see what other questions people might have. That's my ocean song. It just sort of runs on repeat in my head because I love singing to the ocean. I'm just looking through here. Spigots, buying cultures in wholesale, buying tea in bulk. That's great. We love that. Buying starter liquid. I'm just trying to find a different type of question. Problem placing an order. Of course, we can help you with that. Yeah, you know what? So let me tell you what's coming up here. So on December 10th, Saturday, from 11 to 3, here in Gardena, California, lovely Gardena, California, just south of Los Angeles, just north. Kia ora! I love me, my friends from New Zealand. I was trying to say Tanzania, but I knew that was not right. I don't know why I had a T word stuck in my head. I really loved visiting Auckland, even though I was only there for 24 hours. It's a beautiful city, beautiful part of the world. Would love to get back. Had a quick whirlwind trip to Australia and New Zealand back in 2019 to help support the kombucha industry down there. So thank you for the greetings and happy summer. So yeah, oh, that's right. I was telling you about our, hey, Wild Tea from Canada, welcome. So I was telling you about our open house. So if you're here in Southern California, come join us Saturday, December 10th. We're doing an open house. You can get gifts for friends. And we're also going to have some products that we don't sell on our website. So like we have a glut of half-gallon jars. So if you need fermentation jars, we've got those. We have extra, we use a 750 ml bottle for our personal drinking kombucha that we make for ourselves. We'll also have some kombucha and water kefir for you to sample and try. maybe some bottles to take home. We're doing some holiday flavors. So come stop on by, check out our beautiful mural, get some gifts for people you love. And we've got our tea blends, our kombucha soap, all kinds of our elderberry syrup kit. So we're going to have everything here. Myself, I'll be here. So if you need books signed for yourself or to give as gifts, I'll be here and happy to welcome you into Kombucha Camp. So come stop by. If you're in Southern California on Saturday, December 10th, we're really excited to host you here from 11 to 3. So, and just so you know, if you are in Southern California and you'd rather swing by and pick it up, not pay for shipping, whatever, you can do that. So we're a warehouse, not a retail store, which means we're open from 9 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, and we're closed all federal holidays just because we can't ship on those days, and that allows our team a chance to rest and relax. Yeah, question. I'm so excited. Can you add dehydrated fruit to flavor as soon as the sweet tea brew has cooled, or is it best to wait for the first fermentation is done? Yeah, so this really depends on, do you have SCOBYs in a SCOBY hotel? The reason I say that is because fruit is going to have its own natural colonies of yeast and bacteria that can potentially interact with your SCOBY. And so while you certainly can put them in, in primary, and you'll get a milder flavor profile, things like that, it will also potentially have an impact on your SCOBY. So you certainly can. We just would advise making sure that you have a backup SCOBY so that you aren't potentially contaminating your culture, creating, a yeast that might create a lot of alcohol or things like that. So it just depends on your ultimate goal there. We like to flavor in secondary just because it gives us a bit more control. We're not worried at that point about impacting our mother culture, and so we can be more flexible with that flavoring process. That said, kombucha is a canvas, and so feel free to paint with your creativity in any way that makes sense for you. So definitely feel free to flavor your way, and then let us know how it turns out. So tag us when you post it on Insta or anywhere on social at Kombucha Camp. We love to see what you're up to, what you're brewing. And hey, we might just share it over here as we're going through all this. What are we going through? Life. That's right, we're going through life. All right, we got another 5 minutes. So any last questions before we wrap up today? I hope you've gotten some good info. I'm still trying to find, customer service emails that I can answer here for you. Placement, sourdough, advice, batch won't ferment. Does it have mold? Yes, okay. All right, so yeah, of course, my pleasure. We love our ferments. It's so interesting to see kind of what beverages develop, because here's the thing, making a traditional fermented food or drink and getting that to consumers is really challenging. I highly recommend, if you're looking to go commercial, is to have a space. And it doesn't have to be your own space. You can be a partnership with someone. But when you create community, when you put your roots deep, that's when you have a richer experience. Not only that, you're more rooted into your community, right? When we look at the prairie grass and we look at their roots go super deep. And it's because they need to be able to pull from a deeper source, especially when there's drought or there's, any sort of elements that might cause them to not be able to thrive, right? They have to be able to hunker down so then they can regrow when nutrients return, sunlight, water, etc. And so we need to think of our businesses in the same way. We need to think, how can I go deeper with my customers, serve them where their needs are, give them what they need. And I think that building community is really the best way to do that, because a lot of times we make our buying decisions based on emotions. Yes, there's, the math, at least here in the United States, everyone's programmed for, pay the least amount. Like, we have a really hard time shifting that mentality, because even though we used to spend 30% of our budgets on food, because we understood how valuable it was to have healthy inputs, that has been supplanted by entertainment. So we are more willing to spend money on things that make it fun for our brains, without remembering that we also need to have healthy bodies, or that it's worth the investment to spend the money on more nutritious inputs. And so when it comes to fermented foods and drinks, what makes them so different from just, a probiotic soda in a bottle is there's an actual fermentation process that has to occur. And fermentation is alchemy. Fermentation is magic. Literally, it is microbes creating magic. And so fermentation is an incredibly valuable process. It enhances nutrients, and these aren't synthetic nutrients, and they aren't monoculture, because so often what happens in like a probiotic soda is you're getting one strain. And this is the whole, this is the shifty thing about probiotics in my mind. Here's the reality. Here's the reality of human history, okay? Somebody way back in the 1800s, and I should probably know his name or whatever, but you can go look this up online. Somebody in the 1800s noticed that when old people had yogurt or fermented dairy, they lived to be really long. They were long-lived. And so they considered those foods to be probiotic, to have healthy organisms that keep you alive. And I believe that assumption can be applied to all fermented foods that have living organisms in them, right? However, there's so much, right? We have to validate all of our claims. We have to put it through a pharmaceutical process. We have to prove that this one strain in this one way consistently delivers this one benefit, whatever that might be. And this costs a lot of money. And so certainly a lot of the dairy microbes have been considered probiotic because the dairy industry spent a lot of money validating and proving that their microbes have this specific benefit. Not every industry has that money to spend. And there's this concerted effort to pharmaceuticalize the word probiotic. That said, I think the cat's already out of the bag. Too many people associate probiotic with having living microbes in them. But you'll get these sort of, confusing talking points because, for example, here in the United States, even though we don't have a definition of probiotic, companies can be sued if they're, in class action lawsuits because they haven't added a specific strain that's been specially tested, blah, 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 blah. And so you have this litigious, capitalistic desire to extract value from industry or from products because they haven't gone through a pharmaceutical process, and we completely ignore all of human history, which is to say human beings have been cultivating these ferments at home for a very specific reason. Now, here's the thing. Let's go beyond probiotic. Prebiotics. So these are going to be what feeds the biotics in your body so that they can continue to create your immunity, your serotonin, your various things that make your body function properly, that help your immune system, that help your mental health. And then we have postbiotics, which also kombucha has because it creates these organic acids. It's creating nutrients after fermentation or after that. And then we have synbiotics, which is the combination of all these things. So fermented foods are going to have these benefits, assuming that they are still in their living form. Now, pasteurized fermented foods are still going to have a benefit too. It's just going to be a different type of benefit because the microbes aren't alive, they're dead. However, our bodies can absorb their DNA. This is what's so cool about human bodies, is that our cells, because we are bacterial sapiens, and like it's sort of I mentioned the Matrushka dolls earlier, right? Like what happens out here happens in here, happens out here, happens in here, happens. There's this constant reflection back and forth, as above, so below. And so when we look at memes, right, remember those didn't exist until we had social media, but they're iterations of the same image with different words or different this to communicate a similar type of message, a similar type of information. Well, we're bacterial sapiens, and bacteria do the same thing, where they will take pieces of DNA from different organisms and incorporate them in like Rubik's Cube and shift them into different iterations. And so this is how we continue to evolve, how we continue to iterate. So our bodies are incredibly creative, our minds are incredibly creative, and in fact, we're kind of bacteria shaped, right? Think about it. We look like a tube. We have tubular appendages. Back means rod shaped. Like we are bacterial sapiens. We're shaped like bacteria. We're totally tubular, dude. It's pretty cool. So all of that is to say, what's at odds here is what can we say in advertising our products, what is instinctually understandably true, and what does, there's a benefit to pharmaceuticalizing these products, and, now I can charge you a bunch of money for a pill in a bottle. Here's the thing, though. the thing we've understood from the Human Microbiome Project, which has been going on for 22 years now, is that diversity is key. Diversity is key. What we need is many, many organisms, bacteria, yeast from all over. We don't even know. So, for example, when they started looking at the biomes of the Hadza people, I probably am saying this wrong, they're in Africa, and they live very closely to how their ancestors lived. And when they looked at their microbiome, there were all these, known pathogens living in their bodies, yet they weren't expressing a pathogenic state. And so the other thing about germ theory that gets ignored or swept under the rug is this concept of pleomorphism, which is to say that bacteria will change based on their environment, because the bacteria that are in your body helping you live, when you die, they're there to eat you. Literally, they're there to help you decompose. The earth is bloodthirsty. The earth thrives on blood and bones and guts, which is important, because if she didn't, what would we do with all these dead bodies? Where would they go? Right? We can't just have a glut of human bodies sitting around with none of our nutrients going back into the earth. And so it's really important that we have these two abilities within our body, and it's all predicated on chemical changes. And so pleomorphism is the ability for microbes to shift their function based on the environment that they're in. So this is terrain. So the shift in thought process from germ theory, which has been expounded upon and capitalized upon because it generates incomes and yet does not tell the full story of what it means to be a human being, is that it allows us to understand that what we need is diversity. That was the whole point, is we need diversity. So we need diversity of thought, we need diversity of cultures, we need diversity of opinions, we need diversity everywhere. Diversity is strength. It's when we're polarizing that we really end up weak. And like a SCOBY, right? We got to throw out our nanofibers of connection. We need to bond together. And there are so many ways in which we have more in common than we don't. There are so many things that we have common shared values on than we don't. And so the more that we remember to stick together and to create a world that allows everyone to have a chance to thrive, even if we disagree on, 5%, 10%, 2%, 1%, 50%, whatever that percent is of ideas, we all agree we want a world in which we can live and thrive and survive. And so this is where fermented foods are always going to be superior to pharmaceuticalized probiotics cultivated in a lab in a sterile environment that then only have one or two strains. I'm not saying there aren't benefits to those potential products, but I don't know about you. I cannot pop pills. I can't. Like, I try and I'll do it for a while, and then I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I realize supplements are valuable. I'm not saying don't take supplements that aren't valuable. Don't take medicines that are valuable for you. But I just personally am someone who, I want to get my nutrients from food. I want to get it from the sun. I want to get it from lifestyle. I don't want to have to open all these bottles and take all these pills. And it just is draining to my psyche. Even though I know they're potentially helping me or boosting me, I really want to get that as much as possible from all the other things I'm doing in my life. So whether that's sitting in nature, singing to the ocean, sharing with you guys, love is a vitamin. Beauty is a vitamin. Our souls need these things to be nourished. And that said, there's also a time and place for all of these things to work together. So long story short, eat fermented foods. You'll feel a lot better. You'll have a lot more diversity in your microbiome. Take supplements if you need them, or pharmaceutical medications if you need them. And let's try to judge ourselves less and love more and appreciate what it is to be a divine being, having a human experience, living in this wonderful planet. We live in paradise. It's all around us. And even if it doesn't feel like it, we can carve out and create our own little bits of paradise. And let's just love. Let's just love each other. Let's just love this planet. Let's just love ourselves up to the next vibration. All right. I love you. I'm wearing purple, so I'm feeling Barney. You love me. All right, everybody, you have a wonderful day. If any of this information resonated for you, please share with someone else. Maybe it'll help them. Like, follow, not because I need it, but because the algorithm does. And just know that I am sending my true love out to you. Mama energy. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to translate that. But it looks beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time on Mama Mondays. Woo! Joyful greetings. Oh, thank you. That's really lovely.